Have you been a mother and homemaker for most of your adult life, maybe even the last 20 or even 30 years, with little or no work experience, and you find yourself in a position where you need to write a resume? Well, that's exactly where I found myself last year. And I'm going to show you exactly how I wrote my resume, and we're going to go through it section by section. So don't worry, help is on the way. But first, welcome to my channel, Mountain Mama, a family lifestyle channel. My name is Mary Silverberg, and I like to share topics like faith, food, fashion, function, and fun. And today's episode is all about writing a resume when you've been a homemaker for most of your adult life. Before I get started on the particulars of my resume, I just want to let you know that I'm going to post a link in the description box below to a redacted version of my resume. So you will be able to click on that link and actually look at the full resume and use it for your reference. Before I go any further, I should say that when I wrote this resume, I was seeking a job as a flight attendant. Yes, I really wanted to be a flight attendant. So this resume was written with that job in view. And I went on an interview and I did get hired. I got a conditional job offer it was conditional upon completing training. I would be hired as a flight attendant for an airline. However, before I went to training, I decided that that really wasn't the job I wanted. But I was very thankful that I had taken the time to write this resume, because then as I went to apply for jobs and went on interviews, I had one with me. The first thing I did in writing my resume was I went online and I Googled free sample resumes. And I just picked one that appealed to me, a very simple one-page resume, and I used that as my template. But I did tweak it a little bit. And I started with the easy stuff: name, address, telephone number, email. Easy peasy. The next section was professional summary. And there I hit a dead end. I couldn't think what to write. So I Googled sample professional summaries and read several of those. Still, writer's block. Couldn't come up with anything. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go over this. I'm going to fill in what I can, and then I'll go back to the professional summary. Okay, so after professional summary, the next thing on here was skills, and I was like, oh. And then the next thing was work history, and I was like, oh. And then the next one was education. I thought, okay, that's easy. So I filled out what my education has been. And then interest, which I put Bible study, reading, photography, travel, home remodel / interior decorating, and last but not least, all things family, cooking and fun. And then the last category on this resume was references. And I had 2 business references. One was someone that we used to do our taxes with, and I actually worked part-time in his office for a couple years just during tax season. And the next is our insurance agent. And then the third reference is our pastor. And I want to insert here that I asked all 3 of those people if I was allowed to use them as references. And all 3 were very happy to agree. But this is just a very professional way to get their permission and to give them a heads up that people are going to be contacting them. So that was all the easy stuff. Then I needed to hunker down and do some brainstorming to get this thing finished. So I went on to skills, and I came up with 4. Homemaking, and if you know how to do homemaking well, that is a very important skill. Customer service, I worked in retail before I had children, and also I answer the phones in our family plumbing business. Marketing / public relations. I was also a part of a BNI network group where I represented our family plumbing business, and not only did that help our plumbing business, but it also helped me personally in developing public speaking skills, which was the last skill that I listed, public speaking, which is very important. And I thought all four of these skills were actually geared well towards getting me that job as a flight attendant. Work history. So, what I did was I simply filled in the jobs that I had before I was a mother, and those were retail sales, I was a waitress, I worked in a bakery, I worked in a bank, and I was a secretary or receptionist for an engineering firm. And then I listed the biggest job of my life, which was homemaker slash homeschool teacher slash mother of six, which has been the most difficult job, but also the most rewarding job of my life. And I also listed that I wrote a book, and it's called Reflections on Childhood Diabetes, a mother's story of hope and encouragement, because how cool is that I wrote a book? But also, I wanted them to know as I was applying for this job as a flight attendant that I have experience with people who suffer from medical conditions and that I have experience in dealing with people who have medical emergencies. So I thought that was very important to list on here. And then I listed that I worked in a tax office, and what I did was we were getting our taxes prepared, and they happened to mention that they offered a free class where you could take the class and get certified to work as a tax preparer and possibly go to work for them. So I thought, this class is free. I'm going to take it, and maybe it'll help out in our family plumbing business, just me having this knowledge of how to be a tax preparer. And then I did actually work 3 tax seasons, which is only 3 months out of the year, in that tax office. And that was a very nice way of easing me back into the workforce. I'm really glad I did it because then I had something to put on my resume that was current. And I also worked in marketing, customer service in our family plumbing business. Even though I did this at home, basically answering the phones, I thought it was important to list that because it was actually a paid job. And as part of that job, I was a member of a BNI network. And in that BNI group, I was elected and served 1 year as president of that chapter. So all those things combined made up my work history for this resume. Now, what if you're saying, well, that's fine for you, Mary, but I don't have any current work history? Well, if I didn't have any current work history, this is what I would have done. I would have listed my volunteer work. I have volunteered in church nurseries for over 30 years. And just because it wasn't a paying job doesn't mean that it wasn't work and it wasn't work history. So I definitely would have put that down there if I didn't have any current work. I didn't list it because I didn't think I had room for it. Another thing that I did was at Family Bible Camp, I was the director of activities for the middle school age group. And if you've ever worked with middle school age children, you know how difficult that can be. And you know how valuable that work experience is. So I would have put that down as well. So if you don't have any current work experience, think about what experience you do have, such as volunteer work or anything else that you can put down that is experience even though you weren't paid to do it. This left me with the dreaded professional summary. And after some thought, I decided to change this to personal and professional summary since I didn't have that much current professional history. And that helped me to relax a little bit when I was writing. And this is what I came up with. 30 plus years happily married, successfully raised and homeschooled 6 children, experienced in retail marketing, clerical work, and customer service, experienced with diabetes, experienced volunteer in church nurseries and church kitchens, people person, loves children, loves to work with the public. So my resume was looking pretty good. I was very happy with it. And I asked a couple of my adult children if they would review it for me. And I'm very happy I did this because they had some very good input. My daughter suggested that my name be in bigger letters and bolder than it had previously been. She said that that's one thing they really stressed to her in one of her college classes about resumes was that your name really needs to stand out. Something that my son recommended was my address, telephone number, and email be in a lighter font, just so it receded a little bit into the background, but it was still clear enough for them to read. And then they also had some other suggestions, which I really don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I followed them. There was one thing that I didn't agree to, and that was one of the children thought that I should omit homemaking from the skills category. And this is where I drew the line. I said, absolutely not. This was very important to me. Homemaking is a valuable skill. It's been basically my life's work, and that was going on my resume. So I would recommend that you ask a young adult to look over your resume because they're going to be more in touch with what's going on in the workforce, and they're going to really have some valuable information. And even just to proofread it, they might find some errors for you, which would be very important. And this is how I composed my resume. If you need to look at the whole thing in its entirety, remember I will post a link to it in the description box below so you can look at the whole thing. Also in the description box below, I will post a link to an episode I made on what I wore to my flight attendant interview, just in case you're seeking a job as a flight attendant. And if you're writing a resume, don't let anyone tell you that you don't have any work experience just because you've been a homemaker all your life, because that is valuable work experience. Okay, thanks for watching. Please subscribe.